Alright guys, so check out Barbell Apparel, my sponsor. I will link them in the description. They help the channel, help me, help everything grow. Thank you. But the point of today's video, so I did get results on what has been going on as far as the worst pain of my life. I've talked about this in the last video. I've been experiencing for the last couple of months the worst pain of my entire life, like debilitating lower left abdominal pain. Seemed like it was emanating from the colon and the large intestine. So I was thinking maybe it could be diverticulitis, it could be colitis, something like that, because it's just been brutal. And then even, this has flared up pretty bad. Like, it was bad enough one time I was like driving to the ER, and then it started to dissipate enough where I just set up a normal appointment. But even last week, so last Friday I was supposed to run a 50K, 31 miles. Well, it was like mile 16, and this thing started killing me, which has happened before. It happens the further I get into a run. And it was all on my left side, like right here, just killing me, tying into my low back on the left side. And I would have to be like doubled over in pain every like minute. So I death marched like the last 8 miles, just literally like death march walking, doubled over in pain a lot of the time. And I'm like, I got to get this dealt with. So obviously we ran all the labs. The labs were phenomenal. Like, that's what's so funny about this. You could have something like this going on and your labs are just like perfect. So labs aren't always the end all be all, albeit they're very important. They tell you mostly what's going on. Things are good. And they didn't run like super comprehensive labs, but they did a CBC, a CMP, that kind of stuff. So everything was immaculate on the labs, which I could post up here. Only thing off was eosinophils, which is allergies. And I've been over this before. Eosinophils are your allergy marker. So when those are elevated, it's a white form of white blood cell. When those are super elevated, it's allergies. So I had that going on. My hematocrit was like 40, 39.9. It always is pretty low, which that's really low. Like, if you were on testosterone, you'd be in the 50s. I've seen guys on testosterone and anabolic steroids at like 56. So 39.9 is pretty low, tying into your hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is roughly, if you multiply it by 3, that's what your hematocrit is usually around. I think it was 13.7. Kidney functions were like perfect. Obviously, I've touched on this before, and I want to educate you guys. Cystatin C is a much more accurate biomarker. I check cystatin C once a year because it gives a much truer representation of your kidney health. If you have a lot of muscle mass or if you're a bigger guy, because the eGFR, estimated glomerular filtration rate, that is estimated off of cystatin C, and that doesn't, it's not thrown off by muscle mass. So when I had that done, I was at a 130 eGFR. With creatinine, which mine was 1.00, which is like the lowest it's been, it was like 100. So you can see there's a pretty big difference, although they're both really good. But creatinine just doesn't it's skewed by body weight and how much muscle you have and things like that. Liver enzymes were perfect. Those were 22, 25. There was just nothing. Like C-reactive protein, usually they'll measure it up to 0.3 at the lowest, and mine was like below it was below 1. It won't go any lower on the normal scale. So it was the lowest it could be, which is a measure of inflammation. The sedimentation rate, which measures like how quickly your red blood cells drop, how quickly when they drop them in like a dropper, how quickly they fall down through like water, I believe. And I had the lowest level you could possibly have as far as the inflammation, because that's another inflammation marker, like C-reactive protein. So all this stuff is perfect. So we get the CT scan done. It was Tuesday, I believe. Tuesday, I get the CT scan, and it takes like 5 minutes. And they said, we'll call you in 24 to 48 hours. And they called me 4 hours later. So 4 hours later, I get a call. And they're like, you have a very large kidney stone in your left kidney that you are not going to be able to pass on your own. And I was like, okay, how big is it? And they were like, 22 millimeters. So, wow. And I'm like, okay, that explains a lot. I have personally only heard of those around me who've had kidney stones. I've heard of people with an 8. My wife even had a 9 when she was pregnant with our daughter. I've heard of like upwards of 10 even. Dr. Berg has a video. Dr. Berg is a great resource, by the way, on YouTube. he had a video where he talked about a 10 millimeter and how he was in like massive pain. They drove him to the ER. And even when my wife Kelly had the 9, she was in the worst pain I've ever seen her in. Complete agony. Morphine didn't do anything. They had to give her, I think it was like tramadol, finally brought the pain down a bit. But it was way worse pain than childbirth for her. So 22, I was like, excuse me? I was like, is that real? So 22 millimeter kidney stone. So right away they're like, we're gonna have a urologist call you. We'll set up an appointment. And I started researching like, okay, what are the methods for this? Because I'm aware of like lithotripsy, where they do the sonic waves to break it up. And all of these, you're under sedation, you know, you're out of it. But for the ones this big, over 2 centimeters, apparently a lot of times they do something called PCNL, where they cut an incision in your low back, and they pull the kidney stone out of your, you know, right through your low back when you're out. Now, I had a meeting with the urologist this morning. He wants to do a ureteroscopy, which is where they go up through, I believe, your like groin with a stent, and they laser the kidney stone into a billion bits of dust, and it comes out through the stent. So it's like a couple hour procedure. So that's what we're gonna do. That's what he wants to try first. So surgery is April 15th, and if that doesn't work, you know, he said we might have to give it a go again or do PCNL, where you go through the low back. But got to get this knocked out, because this is making running darn near impossible past a certain mileage. So the further I run, the worse it gets, because the stone is like jamming into the ureter, and it just is crazy painful. And I told him, I'm like, you know, I've been peeing blood off and on for 3.5 years, so it kind of makes sense that this is what's going on. And I'm very prone to kidney stones through genetics and all that. So we're going to go this route. He said there's not really going to be much downtime. He said you're perfectly healthy, so I should be able to just get running again, no problem, lifting again, no problem. But I had serious doubts after last weekend's run. I was like, you know, I'm in shape and all that. I just hit a 10K and 5K PR. I think I did a 5K in like 6:52 pace, and I did a 10K at like 7:05 pace. And you know, I've ran upwards of 70 miles a week. I'm in really good shape, but I was like, there's no way I'm going to get through this 100 miler in the mountains with this pain. This pain is brutal. 10 out of 10 stabbing pain. Like I feel it most days, and I'll have burning and stuff like that, but when it flares up, the pain is unbearable. It'll deck you on the floor. Like I can hardly walk when it gets that bad. I'm like doubled over in agony. So I knew that I'm like, this is going to be impossible. Like running 100 miles is already hard enough, especially in the mountains. How am I going to do that with this stabbing pain down my side? It's not going to be possible. So I'm very happy and thankful and praise the Lord that we're getting this dealt with ASAP. Like literally praise the Lord. I feel like my prayers have been answered as far as, you know, we're getting right down to business. These guys haven't played around with it, and we're going to have a fix for this. So pretty excited about that. And that'll put me about, when it's all said and done here, I think that'll put me around 55 days out from the race. So I'm going to hit it hard, you know. I'm 205 pounds body weight. I'm going to be probably one of the biggest guys there. We're going to knock it out. Going to get through this, you know, and then I'm going to move on to getting back to the heavy weights. I'll be running about 3 days a week, around 20 miles total when I'm done with this. Nothing too crazy, as opposed to 70 mile weeks. And then I'll be lifting hard again, trying to get the lifts to another level. Also, I just pulled 551, which was pretty cool, because I wasn't sure that would be there. There's just so much less cushioning around the waist. It's very hard. Got the 551 easily. Definitely feel like I had 573, but I just didn't know before I put the weight on the bar. Because often, you know, I'll see this with my clients in the meets. Like I did 485 as the last warm-up and then went to 551. But the 551 will take so much out of you that you can't like just add another 20 pounds and try the 573. You either have to make the call on 551 or 573. And I picked 551, and it moves well. So had I picked 573, I think I would have had it for sure. I literally have no doubt. But after doing 551, it's not in the cards. I didn't try it because I know my back was not going to be happy. I feel like my back is way more brittle right now, being this lean, and I got to kind of weigh it. But that's an update on everything that's going on. So we finally have an answer as far as the massive degree of pain that I've been in. And I appreciate you guys supporting the channel. I'm going to keep everything coming. God bless you all. And we will, I'll keep the tips coming. I'll keep everything coming as far as giving you guys good information that you can learn from and apply. So thank you guys.